know that there is an ancient artifact that literally proves God exists?
Well, that seems pretty unlikely. I mean, when you have a timeless, spaceless, invisible man who lives outside the universe, objects within that universe don't tend to do anything for them, really. Probably because real things aren't usually able to prove fake things. But sure, I cannot wait to find out how we've had this real, true evidence for the God-mans this whole time.
So yesterday I was reading the Quran and I came across this particular verse in chapter 10 verse 92.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure plenty of my regulars recognize Told Lily J, but I also know that a lot of you probably thought she was just another Christian apologist. But it turns out she is actually an Islamic apologist. And as you know, that makes a huge difference to the quality of the arguments. No, wait, it makes no difference. It's literally all the same shit, and that's why you didn't realize until she actually said it. Also, on a side note, she's apparently in a spot of bother at the moment. I don't know what it's all about, but honestly, I hope that it's not true. I mean, imagine being an idiot and a complete piece of shit at the same time. I mean, I don't have to because I'm me. But I wouldn't wish being so sick on anyone.
It basically says that God will preserve the body of Pharaoh so that it may be a sign for those of the future.
You have got to be kidding me. Really, that's your smoking gun? The one that proves that God does the real? Not some ancient explanation of quantum mechanics. Not a prehistoric diagram of a CPU. Not even a random rock that says God was here scratched onto it. But a prediction that a thing they already knew existed at the time was going to exist. No, mate, that's not what happened. The preserved mummies were known about since well before your particular book, though, was written. They just thought, hey, this thing everybody knows about. Let's pretend that God did that. Or at least predicted it, or whatever. And it's not even a specific one, apparently, considering bloody loads of pharaohs were mummified. It was kind of their thing.
Now, growing up Christian, I went to a Catholic school, so I know the story of Moses very well.
Honestly, I'm just shocked to find out that you went to any kind of school. And I'll be even more so if you actually remember anything that was taught to you there. Even if it is one of the ridiculous made-up nonsense things, just like the story of Moses. So it's not that it really matters. You could perfectly recall a line of bullshit, and it would still be bullshit.
Moses, he saved the Israelite slaves by parting the Red Sea. They escaped while the wicked Pharaoh and his army drowned.
You can just see the modern day police report now, can't you? Local man steals valuable property, drowns wealthy owner in lake. But yeah, it's a famously shaky story, a myth built out of various other stories of things happening around the time and then attributed to the god that the people writing it just happened to be following. Again, the fact of a story being written down doesn't make all of its details true, especially when it lacks credible evidence.
But this particular verse in the Quran, it got me intrigued. The Bible doesn't mention anything about what happened to the body of Pharaoh after he died.
Oof. That is not as great a point as you think it is. Yeah, more recent revisions of various texts do often have greater detail in them. But that's not because they suddenly discovered all this extra crap stuffed between the couch cushions. It's because when you are rewriting something, you tend to fill in the gaps. You make up some extra stuff to make a more complete narrative. But that's not proof that they somehow knew more about the events than the people who were there, especially when no one was there when it was made up.
So, why does the Quran say God will preserve the body of Pharaoh?
Probably because the writer thought they were being clever. Figured, hey, you know this story that we have literally no good reason to believe? Well, what if we mix in this real thing that exists and then pretend that it was always supposed to be part of the narrative? I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Bible, Quran, Torah, and whatever else, these books are essentially historical fiction. Yes, they take place in real settings, and sometimes they even reference real people. And that is the extent of the things that are real in those stories. They are equivalent to things like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter or The Death of Stalin. Both stories set in real countries and locations. Both have historical figures as part of that story. But both, by and large, are completely fictional, and no amount of real people or places can change that when most of the shit in them did not happen.
I know many mummies from the ancient Egypt are in fact mummified and preserved, so maybe there's something more to this verse.
Damn it, I really thought you were about to unstupid your point and concede that, well, you know, they are mummified remains already, so maybe it's just a reference to a thing basically everybody and their mum-y knew about. No, Lily. The more to it is, they heard about a thing that was real and wrote it in to give it some unearned authority. That's it. It's not true, and it's not made more true by co-opting reality around it. Especially not by saying, well, there are loads of them, so that makes it more likely, even though it is literally a singular event, and they were being made for centuries, if not millennia beforehand.
I did some research and you will not believe what I found. This is just crazy.
I'll be honest, dude, I don't believe you did some research so much as typed in, what's the stupidest proof for God that ever did the do, and decided that's what you believe now. But I do believe whatever you did find will indeed be crazy, or at least something that only a person with severely compromised mental faculties could possibly think amounts to more than just a giant pile of pig shit.
There is currently a mummified body in a museum in Egypt that people claim to be the body of Pharaoh from the time of Moses.
People believe? What people? Experts or just, Steve the janitor? Also, even if it's actually from the time where the story of Moses is set, again, that's just a thing existing, a thing people knew existed and was long preserved, being written into a story that has nothing to do with it in reality. Essentially, the time of Moses is just no time because it didn't happen.
So, science confirms that this body belonged to a pharaoh named Ramses II.
That's not what you said. Look, you could be 100% right, but the way you said it makes it sound like nothing. You didn't say scientists or anthropologists or even some kind of mummy expert, just people. And people could be anyone, from someone who knows everything of a given subject to someone who has literally never even heard of the thing being discussed. There's a reason that it's important not to be so vague. Well, unless what you're saying just isn't true, when vagaries are your best friend, because then you can just say, actually, I never said that. Sure, but that's because you said nothing. How useful.
But can we actually prove that this mummified body is in fact the pharaoh from Moses?
Well, aside from the fact that no, because again, no one was, but even if it was a true story, the we there is apparently doing so much heavy lifting, it could pick you up, and you are clearly the densest thing on the goddamn planet. There's no we that would be proving it. You're not out there doing actual research instead of just constant confirmation bias filling. It is people who actually care what happened and where and why. Not something any apologist is interested in, because for some reason, it always ends up contradicting them.
I've literally been up all night researching this, and what I've found is just absolutely shocking.
I suppose the shock will be less of a shock and more wearily expected result of someone who thinks that research all night means shotgunning 20 cans of chilled espresso and then scrolling 80,000 unrelated TikTok memes before eventually slowing down, half typing was Ramses II ... and then falling asleep on your keyboard, causing autocomplete to finish your sentence for you, you waking up, not realizing it actually wrote just one of the pharaohs, and instead thinking is the one from the Moses time, seeing yes, and then just running with it without checking.
In 1881, archaeologists discovered the body of Ramses II, who was the most powerful pharaoh in ancient Egypt.
A powerful leader from a culture who used preservation techniques designed to, preserve things, was in fact preserved and kept in a relatively safe and stable environment for a long time, allowing said revered leader to stick around indefinitely. Say it ain't so. That must be proof that God am real, and he do that for no reason, to a rival in a religion that would likely claim that the fact that the preservation worked so well was actually proof that their nonsense was the correct nonsense. Weird.
His body is over 3,000 years old, but it is the most preserved body in the whole entire world.
I mean, that's not even true. Considering that you spent all night researching, the fact that in about 3 seconds I found a bunch of arguably better preserved humans shits all over both that claim and your ability to do any decent research. I mean, there's Xin Zhui. While not as old by about 1,000 years, the body is almost disturbingly well kept, with malleable skin and movable joints. Then there's Otzi the Iceman, who is much older, but still maintains visible tattoos, has intact cellular structures, and even their stomach contents was preserved, and others still. But even they will pale in comparison to the type of self-preservation I am doing, using the power of whiskey. I mean, I have been dead for years, and you can't even tell. That is how well whiskey has preserved me thus far.
You can see his skin, his hair, you can even see the shape of his mouth and his nose. It's crazy.
I'm pretty sure that shapes of faces and bits of hair and general superficial shit are pretty common to many, if not most, mummies that have been discovered, and is far from unique to this particular fellow. So instead of being crazy, it's actually, oh look, that's what a mummy looks like. I mean, they are still a pretty strange thing that humans decided to do, but to act as though this one is somehow incredibly unique, and again, preserved better than ones that are in fact preserved way better, is just bizarre and suggests that not only did you not spend all night researching, you didn't do any at all.
Scientists even today are baffled at how this is even possible.
What are you talking about? No, they aren't. The mechanisms of mummification are well understood. The processes and circumstances around preservation are an incredibly well understood concept that have been for a pretty long time to boot. Any scientist who is baffled by the existence of such things either isn't an expert in the field or just plain isn't a very good scientist at all. Probably both. You know, it does always piss me off when morons say, scientists are baffled by X phenomena, because it's almost always a lie and simply means I don't understand it, so for some reason think that people who are way smarter and more competent than me must not understand it either. No, idiot, you're an idiot. That's the problem.
So firstly, this body was only discovered 100 years ago, and the Quran was revealed 1400 years ago. So Prophet Muhammad couldn't have possibly have any knowledge of the existence of this body.
Oh my god, does not exist. I was kidding when I called you the densest thing on earth. Please don't make the joke true. Right, first off, so what? Just because we discovered or rediscovered the body 100 years ago doesn't mean that it wasn't known about at the time and then got lost again. And that would have no bearing on the truth claims of any book though. But the thing is, he probably didn't. He probably had no idea of the identity of this specific guy and just knew that pharaohs from before and after were in fact mummified. So there's no reason to not assume that one around that age was as well. As safe bets go, it's a real safe bet. But the main reason we know he wasn't talking about anyone specific is because, as with most of these types of things, he was called Pharaoh. That's not his name. That could mean literally dozens of goddamn people, if not hundreds of them. You might as well have said, and then the king will king at us. Without the actual name, rather than the title, you can assume that he had no idea who the hell it was. Because he definitely didn't. And even if he did, it still wouldn't make any of the fantastical claims true.
But let's keep going. Let's look at the scientific evidence first.
Keep going? You haven't even started to demonstrate the claim that the mummy of Ramses II would, or even could, prove God. But sure, go ahead. Whatever you think the science says about anything you have stated is gonna be good for a laugh.
So, in Paris 1975, Dr. Maurice Buquet and other scientists, they examined the body of Ramses II, and surprisingly, they found an extremely high level of salt in his lungs. Also, they found mud in his mouth and his nose. After an extensive examination, their conclusion was that this pharaoh's death was not natural at all. It was from a sudden, violent drowning, which was highly unusual and fits exactly with the story of Moses.
Wow, where did you even get that nonsense? No, that's just, I don't know if those guys said any of that, but the fact is, none of it is true. We know pretty much exactly what he died from, and it has nothing to do with drowning. In fact, scans and forensic studies show that Ramses II died around his late 80s, maybe early 90s, from severe age-related health conditions, including massive dental abscesses, severe atherosclerosis, and spinal arthritis. The idea that he was even capable of chasing a horde of fleeing Israelites onto a seabed, let alone that he would have had the stamina or energy to do so, is absolutely ludicrous. And if you are suggesting, what about the salt? That comes from seas, doesn't it? You do know that they use, and not to get too technical, but an absolute shit ton of salt in, oh that's right, the mummification process. What even are kids learning in school? I swear to non-existo.
And you will not believe it, Dr. Maurice Bucaille was so baffled by this discovery and so convinced by the Quran's accuracy that he actually became a Muslim.
Well, that sounds made up, and I hope it is, to be honest, because if it's not, it's the stupidest reason to convert to anything ever. This nonagenarian drowning in a lake is so far from the likely bedridden state of what actually would have happened that to think that it aligned with the story of Moses is so utterly laughable. Only a complete moron would find it convincing of anything. Cough. Lily, cough, cough. Oh, and according to, actually bothering to do some research, apparently his conversion is just made up BS from apologists. It appears that at no point did he ever claim to be anything other than the Catholic he started as.
What's even crazier is most ancient bodies show signs of dying from natural causes like old age or illness, so a death by drowning is extremely rare.
So rare that it didn't even freaking happen. Although, in actuality, all sorts of brutal and ridiculous deaths would have happened all the time in the ancient world. Funnily enough, their health and safety regulations were a little on the lax side. So I would bet the drowning is extremely rare claim isn't even true. But even if it was rare, and that's actually what happened, one drowned leader does not make a made-up story true. Hell, if it was known that he drowned at the time, what are the betting that writers would have jumped at the chance to write it into their books as totally because of our thing?
And it fits exactly with the story of Moses from the Bible and the Quran. But here's another incredible detail. All the skin on the body is completely intact. However, X-ray results show that some of the bones inside are broken. This indicates some kind of strange impact where the bones are broken, but the skin didn't break.
Holy shit, you are dumb. Have you met an old person? You can literally break their bones by breathing on them too hard. Of course he had broken bones under the skin. They were likely more brittle than your ability to make a coherent thought. Not to mention that the process of actually embalming someone is hardly a gentle one, and probably broke more than a few while they were at it. And it's certainly not impossible that others could have been damaged in the few thousand years since all that to boot. But do you know what wouldn't, nay, couldn't have broken bones without breaking the skin? Umpteen tons of water dashing the poor bastard against the likely countless rocks of the seabed. The fact that he's not a smashed up ball of goo is the strongest evidence that none of this shit ever happened to him than anything else could possibly be.
Based on this, it's suggested the possible cause of this mysterious injury could be from a powerful wave from the sea crushing down on him that caused this damage. Like, what? This is just crazy.
The only crazy thing in this video is that anyone would find any of this ridiculous nonsense even remotely convincing.